All right, welcome back. Our next accessory structure we're going to take a look at are glands. We have two major groups of glands we're going to talk about. They are the sweat glands and the oil glands. But as everything else in A&P does, it's got special names. So sweat glands are called Pseudoriferous glands, and oil glands are called Sebaceous glands. So we'll take a look at those. Let's see, it looks like we're going to do sebaceous glands first. Yes. So sebaceous glands are your oil glands. So there's a couple different locations where they can be found, but the majority of them, and the ones that we are going to see in our lab activity, are the ones associated with hair follicles, and they are what we call sebaceous glands. Right here. So we saw this kind of in the introduction of the whole integumentary system picture, where we have the gland kind of depositing its secretion into the hair follicle. So the hair would normally be right here. It's kind of been removed from this picture as indicated. This is a holocrine mechanism of secretion. So it was one of our examples. Remember, holocrine is the cells at the base kind of are germinating, right? Mitosis and growth. And then towards the apical surface, towards the duct of this gland, all of the cells are going to be breaking open and releasing the sebum, which is the secretion, the oil, as well as all the cellular components, so cytoplasm and nuclei and all that kind of stuff. So what the oil is that's coming onto your head hair and your face hairs and all wherever you have a hair follicle, it's not only just the oil of the sebum, but it's just all the cell components, just popped cells are leaking out and going into your hair follicle. But that's good. There's some antibacterial properties to this sebum. There's also conditioning and properties of your hair itself and the surrounding skin. So sebaceous glands are good. They help take care of your skin and your hair. Now, confusingly, right, because why not make A&P more confusing? We have a sebaceous gland that actually goes directly to the surface of the skin, but they call this the sebaceous follicle. I know. So the sebaceous gland secretes into a hair follicle, where the sebaceous follicle secretes onto the surface of the skin. I know, who comes up with these things? But you have oil, the sebum goes directly to your skin, and it's not always in association with the hair follicle. We just will see these in lab when we take a look at them in the slide, associated with like here, like in this picture. I also have a picture of pimples, acne, zits, whatever you want to call them, because that's what they are, is infected or inflamed, blocked up sebaceous glands. So whenever you get the gland itself blocked up by dirt or cell debris or things like that, the oil kind of sits around. It can't be released as well. Bacteria from the surface of your skin get in there, eat the oil, create this little inflammation, and then that's your zit on your pimple, whitehead, blackhead, whatever you want to call it. So zits are associated with blocked sebaceous glands. Okay. The next gland is our Pseudoriferous gland, right? That's a fun word to say. Pseudoriferous are sweat glands. And of the Pseudoriferous glands, we have two types. So we have two overarching groups of glands. We have sebaceous glands, which is oil, and Pseudoriferous glands, which are sweat glands. But then of the Pseudoriferous glands, we have two types of those glands as well. The first one I'm going to talk about is your Merocrine sweat gland, sometimes also called Apricon, aka Apricon. So sometimes I refer to it as Apricon because that's how I learned it. So my brain just kind of flips back to the Apricon. I think it's also called Apricon in your lab manual, but either one is fine, Merocrine or Apricon. So this is your temperature regulating sweat. It is found, it is a simple coiled tube structure of a gland. And so you can kind of see in that structure here. And we have some really good slides of these. You'll see this in lab. So the sweat is produced, it is secreted into the duct, and it goes to the surface. It's exocrine, right? It's an exocrine gland. It goes to a surface. This just happens to be the surface of our body, of our epidermis through this sweat pore. And its job is for thermoregulation. So when you get hot, a signal goes, remember, homeostatic mechanism. So the stimulus is you're too hot. Control center recognizes that. This hypothalamus from your brain sends a signal down to your sweat glands to secrete the sweat onto the surface. Evaporative cooling cools you down, and then you go back down to regular temperature, negative feedback, right? So these are your Apricon glands. The Apricon glands Apricon sweat glands are another type of gland that's associated with the hair follicle. So there's going to be sebaceous glands too. They're just not shown here, but we could draw them in if you wanted to. So those would be like a sebaceous gland. Apricon glands are not found all over your body. Apricon glands are, the Merocrine / Apricon. They're just all over the place. Apricon glands are usually found in your armpits, in your groin, and around your nipples. So not as widely distributed. Their secretion is not thin and clear and watery like we normally think of sweat. Apricon secretion is more thick and milky and rich in lipids and proteins. Ugh, right? But guess who loves that for a nice little snack is all the bacteria that live on your skin and your hair follicles. So the bacteria munch on this thick, milky, protein-rich Apricon sweat gland secretion, and then they release their metabolic byproducts of their metabolism, which is what we call body odor, right? So stinky armpits, why we need to wear deodorant is to cover up or try to inhibit the production of Apricon sweat gland secretions so the bacteria don't munch on them and produce their little bacteria flatulence, which is what we call BO. Yay, that's glands, right? Those are the major ones we're going to talk about. So sebaceous glands are those oil glands associated with hair follicles or skin. Pseudoriferous are, we either have the Apricorn, which is from a regulatory sweat associated with this directly onto the surface, and Apricon, which is your thick, milky bacteria food that goes onto your hair follicles in just those few places in your body. All right, so those are your glands. We do have a few other ones we're not going to talk about here. We'll see them as we get into other body systems like the mammary gland. We'll talk more about the reproductive system. Earwax glands, this is called ceruminous, Ceruminous. And we'll talk a little bit more about those when we get to the special senses of hearing. And there's a few other like digestive glands like hydrochloric acid and things, but they're not discussed here. They'll be discussed in the digestive system. So we're focusing on sweat and oil here. I'll see you next time for fingernails and toenails. Okay, bye.